Other interesting business news and good news to say the least, manual transmission actually went up in 2023, and we're going to review the top take rates, aka, spoiler alert, the BRZ took the crown. Now, this comes as more and more automotive companies have acquiesced to boring, computerized transmissions with only 2 pedals. It's boring beyond all belief. Some might say a crime against the automotive community, but nevertheless, there are a couple of manufacturers still keeping the 3 pedals alive, and thankfully, consumers are still spending money on it. Granted, they need to spend a lot more to entice automotive manufacturers to make more of them, as well as, write to your representatives in government so that the government stops banning them with de facto emissions bans. But nevertheless, there are a little bit of a silver lining, so to say, for this situation. Now we're going to go over the top ones. Now, one of the top take rates comes from the Acura Integra Type R. Oh, both the Type R and regular one. Now, it looks like the Type S. Now, granted, yes, it is a glorified Honda, still reliable, darn near bulletproof product. They note that the take rate for the Integra manual was 22%, which is pretty darn good. So of all the Integras they sold, 22% hit that. Now it looks like 32,090 Integras are sold in 2023, and specifically 7,060 of them had 3 pedals. Now, if it's up to me, they'd all have it by default, but nevertheless, pretty good take rate. Now you have BMW, one of the highest take rates. The BMW M2, they came in at a 50% take rate, which is, it does make me smile. Because, again, it's a sports car, it's an enthusiast vehicle, that's what it's made for. It should be by default. You shouldn't even give, it should just be 3 pedals to begin with. But nevertheless, the M2 came in at a 50% take rate. Now the BMW M3 and M4 came in, not great, but still came in moderately strong at a 20% take rate, aka of all the M2s, or sorry, the M3 and the M4s that were sold, 20% of them had 3 pedals, which is pretty darn good. Now, going over to Cadillac, again, I'm not saying Mary Barr should be fired or reprimanded. Well, I guess I am hinting at it quite strongly. One of the best vehicles, I believe, ever manufactured to date. If you want to buy a new vehicle, the Cadillac CT4 and the CT5V Blackwing. One of my buddies got the CT4 Blackwing with a stick shift, should be by default, and he let me drive it around. It's twin turbo V6, huge brakes, huge. The whole thing is made for the track. It is one of the most brilliantly engineered designs that come out of Cadillac, I'd say, in decades. It is a blast to drive. The materials are all high quality. It is perhaps the pinnacle of General Motors engineering. Now, the downside is Mary Barra said, oh yeah, we're going to make Cadillac full EV by 2030. So, disappointing to say the least, obviously. Now, the good news is, and again, I'm not sure if she can't read. Some might debate she doesn't have the acumen to read. It might be a joke. But, again, this is a huge sign of why you should keep this stick shift alive and Cadillac alive in that regard. The CT4 Blackwing and the CT5V Blackwing came in at a 50% take rate for the manual transmission. Half of all those vehicles had a stick shift, which is beautiful. It's one of those things where a lot of people forget how exciting Cadillac used to be as a brand. I mean, a lot of people have that image of them just being a overpriced General Motors or overpriced Chevrolet product, because some of them do carry the same chassis and the same components. But I mean, in this case, they just knock it out of the park. They show you that. I mean, Cadillac used to be at the breaking edge of engineering. I mean, it used to be an enthusiast. It's incredible. And they even had the Blackwing package where they actually have it actually engineered for the track. You actually will record your track data, send it off to a actual expert driver to analyze how you're driving and give you feedback on how to improve your driving skills. And they even have these packages where they'll replace it's a ridiculously good warranty too. I was going to say, GM should give me a dollar or two for this ridiculous pontification of my excitement for the product. But nevertheless, I actually have no affiliation, not paid by General Motors at all. And at nearly a 50% take rate. Now, this is also Cadillac's last manual transmissions car as the brand. Again, they're shifting to EV only, which, pun moderately intended, saying they're shifting to that. It will be a money shift, to say the least. Which, if you're not a gearhead or automotive enthusiast, a money shift is when you shift so badly you basically break the transmission and it costs you a lot of money. So it's not a good thing, to say the least. But, yeah, it is. Yeah, it looks like the Cadillac is the only GM brand to offer the manual transmission as well. Which is insane, because they killed the Camaro. Again, I don't know what Mary Barr is thinking. The Camaro is going to come back allegedly as a 2-door EV SUV. And the Corvette, the C8, of course, is only automatic, which they'll also have an EV as well. So yeah, this is the it is sad how far GM has fallen. And under her leadership, the stock has gone down about 10% over the past 10 years as she's been the CEO for 10 years. Most people would say that's terrible. I mean, I would. Now, other good news now, in terms of other things that had manual transmission in 2023, the Camaro. Now, unfortunately, GM, I don't know if this perhaps above their pay grade, they can't track this data. Kidding, kind of. But they noted that the Camaro sales for last year was double the prior year. And many of them had the good old 3 pedals. The last one ever made actually did come with a manual transmission, as they all should by default. And it is sad to see that pony car going away. Now, we don't give the statistics on how many of them sold, but again, that was an option last year. Same thing with the Dodge Challenger. They noted that they did sell 44,960 units last year, but they didn't break down the manual transmission. I suspect it would be a pretty high percentage because of it being the last year as an option, as again, Dodge is acquiesced to going with a electric version as well as a straight 6, which from the ground up, if you're a straight 6, like something like BMW, where that's a big part of your legacy, you perfected it, and that's what the fans and consumers and enthusiasts expect, okay, but if your old brand is big old V8 Hemis, I mean, that's just sad, to say the least. Now, other contenders come in. The winner of the Pony Wars, I would say, is the Ford Mustang. Now, they also noted that Ford has the Bronco, the SUV with a manual transmission as another option. Unfortunately, Ford did not give us the specifics for the Bronco take rate. Now, they did note as of July, 27% was sold orders for the new Mustang, or the Mustang last year, was with a stick shift, so that's pretty darn good. And the only pony left with a good old V8 and a stick shift. Needless to say, Ford is also the only automotive company of the big three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, that never killed the actual pony car. The Camaro and the Challenger, throughout the years, they did cancel it and bring it back. So even though I think the Camaro is a little bit more fun to drive, and I always like the aesthetics of the looks a little bit more, at the end of the day, I truly believe, the Mustang did win the pony war. Going on to good old Honda, looks like one of the cars with the highest take rate was the good old Honda Civic, which came in at 7%. Now, that also does include the good old Honda Civic Si, which only comes with a stick shift, aka 3 pedals and manual transmission, which I highly respect Honda for doing that. Very few companies truly have that type of enthusiasm around a particular brand and particular trim level. It's few and far in between where you have that type of exclusivity. There are only a couple models that have done that throughout my lifetime, and truth be told, many of them are no longer around. So it looks like specifically Honda sold over 200,000 Civics last year. Jeez Louise. That is quite a few, to say the least. So even 7% is still pretty darn good. And again, the Honda Civic Si as well as the Type R only come with the good old stick shift. It is quite disappointing that all the dealerships, or not, many of the dealerships are doing a $10,000, $20,000 over MSRP for the Type R, which now prices you into a different category of vehicle if you have that type of money in the bank account, so to say, or you want to take out that type of a loan. So good old Honda keeping the stick shift alive. Another surprise comes from Hyundai, which the Hyundai Elantra N, the manual take was 25%, which is really good, and I think is a good advertising for the product, just because Hyundai and Kia, same company, they've come light years since I was a kid. They used to be a joke. Now, thanks to German engineering, aka they had some German executives go over to that company from all the German automobile companies throughout the years, they've increased the value of the product and the actual quality of the product tenfold, or even more. So to see they have a good old stick shift option, and this is one of their best vehicles, I would also argue as well, that's a pretty good take rate. Now, they also have the good old Jeep, which does come with the stick shift option, although they didn't give us that data, unfortunately. The Kia Forte manual take, I didn't even know that was an option, to be honest. But that did come in around 2%, so not too great, but still nice. Now, I was actually a little disappointed by this next one. Now, one of the most iconic vehicles when it comes to track and automotive enthusiasts, as well as being the butt of many jokes, is the Mazda Miata. It's one of those things where the low horsepower, it just makes it seem like a toy if you don't go to the track, or if you're not a gearhead. Truth be told, not half, but a good percentage of my jokes as a child were around the Mazda Miata and how much better the Corvette was at the time. But go to the track for the first time, there are whole categories of people, there's whole spec groups for the Miata, and they do have unparalleled support from the factory for older models, providing support with not only just research and development, but you also have the parts that are easy to replace, as well as whole communities that have been built around it. So that being said, I thought this would be the highest take rate actually for a manual transmission, because that's how the vehicle is not made for 0 to 60 time. It's not made for top speed time. It's made for the art of driving, the actual enthusiasm of the experience. And yet it came in, but the Miata MX-5, it came in at only 60%, which for any other vehicle I would say is astronomically great. But for what I see as one of the best options for a true enthusiast driving on a track, where you're not going for the time, you're not breaking records you're going to have fun. And it only came in at 60%. I thought it would be a little bit higher. Now, Mazda also noted that they only offer 2 manual transmissions at the moment. It looks like the 2 options are the Miata as well as the Mazda 3 hatchback. So, interesting enough, that's, again, it's still great for the industry, but I was a little disappointed for that specific model. I thought it would be a little bit higher. You also have the Mini Cooper, which came in at around 22%. Now, rest in peace, they're killing that vehicle to make an EV, which obviously means they'll have 2 pedals, or no pedals at all, because an EV can just be a computer on wheels that just drives you everywhere. Woohoo. Said like 18 people, but nevertheless. They also noted that the John Works 2-door Mini Cooper came in at 51%, which that's pretty good. Now you do have Nissan. They have the 2 options. They have the Versa as well as the Z, or the 400Z. Now, granted, they didn't even provide the data. And one of the disappointing things about the Nissan Z, the most top one, the Nismo, which is the one that's supposed to be for the track, is extra, not just styling, but a couple extra things. You got improved brakes, and a couple things to improve the handling. That's automatic only. So the thing they designed for the track was automatic only. That's pretty disappointing as well. Now, good old Porsche, they are one of the, you could argue actually the last true high-level sports car that still is dedicated to the 3 pedals, the manual transmission, as every other exotic car is shifted, pun mildly intended, to the acquiesce to boring, electric or automatic transmissions. All the greats that we used to know and love growing up, they've all acquiesced for years to the automatic transmission. Ferraris, nope, automatic only. Lamborghini, automatic only. It's one of the 2 of the most iconic brands in particular, just completely gone. The Chevrolet Corvette, automatic only. They've all acquiesced to it. Now, Porsche directly attributes to keeping the 6-shift alive to North America because of the overwhelming consumer demand for having that 3 pedal. So if you bought a new Porsche, kudos to you, because you're actually helping send that message to Germany that they should keep making this for the automotive community. Now, it looks like the 718 and the 911 manual take rate on both models that offer the manual came in at 40%, which is not terrible. Now, when you break it down, actually, the split was generally a 40% manual and 60% dual clutch on the 718 and 911. Spokesperson doubts that they have changed too much or will change too much in the future. And you do have a couple models where it is automatic only, unfortunately. But still good news if you want a high-end option for a sports car and you want 3 pedals. I mean, Porsche kind of has a monopoly on it, which, again, from a business acumen, is also brilliant because they're capturing those people who want that experience and they want to spend a little bit more. And, of course, there are a few vehicles you can customize more than a Porsche from the factory. You could probably get a dictionary full or a thesaurus full of options with all line items. So you can have whatever you like, including, I think it's I forget the German word for it, but the custom paint jobs, like $35,000, if you want to have like a specific paint to sample for you to have alone. And the custom colors alone, I think even those like $15,000, which worth more than my Honda just for the paint, but still pretty cool and unique. Now, going down, you also have, let me see here. We're actually going to skip to the very top. The top one comes via Subaru, which we could debate is also Toyota. Now, that's thanks to the BRZ, also known as, BRZ, but also as the Toyota 86, because it is manufactured as it is a product of a joint venture partnership between the companies. Now, the BRZ, the manual take rate is actually up to 79%, which is insanely good. They won, bar none. Now, the disappointing thing is if you want 0 to 60 time, you're not going to have it. I've driven a couple of these, and they are a lot of fun, especially in the corners, and you're downshifting. It's hard to beat that feeling, but it is disappointing they don't have a turbo from the factory. Now, thankfully, there's a huge aftermarket community to help you out in that regard, of course, and it's still pretty impressive. Now, the BRZ, again, that came in at 79%. Now, you also have the Subaru WRX. That manual take rate came in at 74%, which is even more impressive when you consider they've actually neutered that vehicle by not actually having an option for the top trim level, which is the STI, which that is perhaps one of the best things Subaru's ever made that I could think of. They also noted that the Impreza and Crosstrek did offer a manual. Still, that take rate is only 1.6%. And again, this is not financial advice, but if you want a car that's like a funny oddity to have in the future, I can't help but think Doug DeMero is going to review that car and bring a trailer in like 20 years, be like, this is the Impreza Crosstrek. And the Crosstrek, it has 3 pedals, and his voice is infinitely better than mine, but talk about an oddity. Only 1.6% of them are actually stick. You also have the Toyota Supra, as well as the Toyota GR86. Now, interesting enough, the GR86, exact same thing as the Subaru BRZ, with different accoutrements, logos, badges, and a little bit of styling. The GR86 only came in at 48%, so I don't know if that's a issue with the advertising of Toyota, or that is astronomical. Basically the same vehicle, but again, I guess it goes also back to advertising, different consumer preferences. But interesting enough, yeah, that came in at only 48%. Now the GR Supra, that came in at 43%, which that's pretty good. Of course, me, I think every Supra by default should have a stick shift. Now, they also know that the Toyota Tacoma, the only truck in North America you can get with a stick shift, is the Toyota Tacoma. The Gladiator does not count. And that did come in at 1.4%. And it's also a shame that more trucks, or any trucks, have that option. You'd also have Volkswagen. The Golf GTI manual came in at a take rate of 50%. The Golf R manual came in at 40%. The Jetta GL manual came in at 40%. Then you also have the Jetta S Sport manual come in at 5%. Now, the sad thing about Volkswagen in the upcoming model year, which again, calendar year is different than model year, they know that the 2025 GTI, they're going to kill the stick shift because of European emissions. Yeah, you could have all the coal factories in the planet if you want for China, but heaven forbid you actually have some fun driving a car in Germany. But nevertheless, politics aside, that'll be later in the show. That's why they're killing that product. So those are all the top take rates, and needless to say, Subaru came in at the top, astonishingly enough, with a good old BRZ. Out of curiosity, of all the vehicles we mentioned, which one would you want to have the best or the most? The caveat is you can't sell it. So you can have anything we talked about today, but what would you want? As always, be fast to hear what you have to say. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January, so if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or comment is a great way to give me some additional comments and additional feedback on how I can make the show better and better. Also, and lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.